Karen stole my boyfriend, and I got shamed for it. I was with my boyfriend for more than 3 years by the time I caught him in bed with my sister. It was heartbreaking enough, but I would eventually learn that they'd been sneaking around with each other for months. Naturally, I didn't really care to speak with her after that, but my family decided that I was the one being unreasonable. Why? Because she had a terminal illness as a child. Apparently, that somehow makes all of this okay. My father married my stepsister's mother when I was 4 and she was 3. We've lived together most of our lives and our family. She and I were extremely close. She developed cancer when she was 14 and was sick for about 2 years. She's since made a full recovery. During that time, my parents became understandably overprotective. They also asked a lot of me. I quit my extracurriculars so I could get a job and so I could drive her to appointments. The money from my job went towards her medical bills. I didn't go to dances, and any fun activities I did needed to include her. I did almost all of this willingly, the exception being having to quit my high school volleyball team. I did throw a bit of a tantrum about that, but was swiftly punished, and I think having one emotional breakdown was pretty chill given the circumstances. Anyhow, I got to college and met my ex when I was a junior. We'll call him Ben. We fell in love, blah blah blah. He and I moved in together when we graduated. We lived together after that for about 3 years. We were serious, until July, when I walked into my bedroom and saw him banging my sister. I broke it off. Tears were shed. He moved out, and so on. My sister apologized at first, but then backed off. I thought she was giving me space, but last week she called and asked if we could meet up. She told me that she and Ben were in love, and were just telling me as a courtesy before they started posting photos online. Distraught, I left her in the restaurant by herself and did not pay my portion of the bill. She later hit me up on Venmo asking for the money. She told my parents, who then called me to their house, telling me how disappointed in me they are for not supporting my sister's relationship with Ben. They brought up the fact that because she had cancer as a teenager, she never learned proper social etiquette and has a hard time meeting people. I don't buy this, in part because I've seen her socialize just fine, and since we spent a good chunk of the time she was sick together, that would also mean that I should have bad social skills as well by that logic. They then told me that if I don't accept my sister and Ben's relationship, they may have to go no contact with me. I reminded them that I'm also their daughter, and they should understand my point of view, but they are adamant that this is about me being jealous of her. For the record, I'm not jealous of her. I'm not upset that Ben picked her over me. I'm sad about the end of the relationship, and I do feel betrayed. But Lord knows that I don't want to be with a cheater. What I'm upset about is the fact that my sister chose Ben over me. That she slept with Ben knowing he and I were in a long-term committed relationship, and she continues to be with him knowing how much it hurts me. Now no one in my immediate family is talking to me, and I'm getting messages from aunts and uncles and cousins telling me that I'm a jerk and a selfish biscuit. Edit. I've been given a lot of food for thought. To be honest, while I've had moments where I've been resentful or upset about my teenage years, I've always thought that I did the right thing for my sister and for my family. And that time wasn't at all miserable. I was very close to my sister, and we made things as fun as we could. But I didn't think of it as an abdiction of my parents' responsibilities, or that they were doing wrong by me. But I definitely have a lot to think about. Update. Sometimes you can only laugh. I just got off the phone with my cousin, who said he could explain a few things. I asked him why he was on Reddit instead of school. He asked me why I was on Reddit instead of work. Touché. He told me that after my conversation with my mom, she went to his house and talked to my aunt. And here's the deal. It turns out my sister is not only in a relationship with Ben, but is also 4 months pregnant, which means that she and Ben were sleeping together much longer than I had even guessed. Apparently, my parents are so adamant that I forgive her because I'm already ruining their experience of expecting their first grandchild. That's right, I'm less important than my stepmom posting ultrasounds to Facebook. This is where we're at. Anyhow, I called out of work sick the rest of the day and I'm going to drink a lot of alcohol. Like a lot of alcohol. And then start thinking about what the heck I'm going to do. Update 2. There are 2 things to clarify. First, I didn't have a bad childhood. The favoritism started when my sister was diagnosed. I moved out soon after and have been pretty independent since then. I'm not saying that how my parents treated me during those years was okay, but I wasn't Cinderella. Second, I did not drink myself into oblivion. I had 2 white wine spritzers, but I appreciate the concern from you folks. Anyhow, here's the update. I got in touch with my sister and asked her to meet up again at a park, where there'd be no bill involved. I asked her if she was pregnant, and she told me the truth. She said that she wanted us to still be in each other's lives, and that she wanted me to be in her baby's life as well. Someone in the comments on the original post mentioned that she may ask me to be the godmother, and that person was correct. But as many of you pointed out, if I didn't cut her off, I'd just become her bank and daycare employee. So I told her I could no longer be in her life, and I left her crying on a park bench. I felt like the most horrible person in the world. I emailed my parents and told them how betrayed I felt and that I'd be cutting off contact with them. To my stepmom's credit, she apologized. She explained that she never thought my sister would live to have kids and that she let her emotion over that get the better of her. Understandable. My dad said nothing, which is honestly what sucked the worst about all of this. Ben tried messaging me from a burner account for the first time since the breakup, but I blocked him without reading it. I didn't go nuclear and post the story to Facebook as some suggested, but I sent an email to the extended family members who I care about. I explained the situation and how I'd be distancing myself from my family. Some have made it an us versus them situation, and as much as I appreciate the support, feeling like I'm in some valiant battle just makes me more tired. So I haven't been talking to much of anyone in my family. I feel lonely and awful, but I think I made the right decision. This original poster seems weirdly eager to agree with everything the commenters say, even if it negates her first post. She said that it was her choice to spend so much time with her sister, but when the commenters decided that it was her parents' fault, she wound up hopping on board with that idea. She also talks about becoming her sister's bank, but there's no evidence for that in the story. There's only one instance of her sister asking her for money, and it was money OP actually owed. It was obviously wrong for the sister to sleep with OP's boyfriend while they were still in a relationship, even if it clearly wasn't a committed one as OP thought. But the comments seem to think that's not enough, and so they're bending over backwards looking for reasons to assume this girl can't breathe without putting some sort of evil intentions behind it. This OP also went from saying she was going to drink a ton to saying she only had 2 drinks after the commenters weren't on board with her original plan. The sheer number of decisions this OP makes based on Reddit comments leads to one of 2 possibilities. 1, she's making this up and catering to her audience for the sake of getting free karma. 2, she's dangerously reliant on the opinions of strangers when making huge decisions, like whether to cut off ties with all family members, even those who admit wrongdoing and show remorse. I'm not saying it's bad to ask for advice, simply that blindly following all advice from Reddit without a backup support system might not be the best way to live. What do you think? How would you handle this situation if it happened to you? Would you listen to the mother's apology? Would you email your extended family to try and expose the sister's relationship? Let us know your thoughts on OP's decisions in the comments below. If you made it this far in the video, consider liking and subscribing for more videos coming. Entitled sister wants me to abort my baby for her wedding. I got married 2 years ago to the love of my life, Ben. Last year we decided that we wanted to try for a baby, as we'd both always wanted kids, and we were now in a good financial place to have them. We own a 4-bedroom house in a pretty nice neighborhood, and we both have good-paying jobs, with mine being remote with more flexible hours. Well, 3 months ago, we found out we were pregnant. Obviously, Ben and I were overjoyed about it. After we confirmed the pregnancy with our family doctor, we invited our parents and siblings over for brunch at our place to tell everyone the great news. However, when I announced that we were expecting, my little sister, Crystal, didn't respond and went quiet. Crystal is 5 months pregnant, if that matters. Well, apparently Crystal told our mom that I'm trying to steal her spotlight at her wedding and that I was jealous of her pregnancy. Later that week, I got a call from Crystal's friend who told me I was no longer a bridesmaid and that our stepsister Brittany will take over as maid of honor. I was very upset and called our mom, who told me that it was my sister's wedding and to do whatever makes her happy, like she did at my wedding. So I went with it. I focused on decorating our house to get it ready for when our baby is born. Well, approximately 2 weeks after I was told that I was no longer maid of honor, Crystal asked me if I could wear heels to her wedding because otherwise I would look fat and frumpy. I told her no way, and that my ankles were way too swollen already, never mind how bad they'd be in 3 months' time. Crystal didn't respond, and I thought that was the end of the matter. Until last week, when Ben and I were dropping off a birthday cake for my dad. My mom pulled me aside and asked if it was really the best time for me to be starting a family. I got defensive and asked her what the heck she meant, and Mom yelled at me for taking a tone with her and being selfish. I told my mom that I'm an adult woman, not a 15-year-old high school dropout, and that she has no say over my body or my pregnancy. Ben and I left. We still planned on attending the wedding, until Crystal started sending nasty texts about how ungrateful I am and how I'm disrespectful to our mom and her wedding plans. I told her she's ridiculous, and that life doesn't stop for everyone around her just because she's planning a wedding. This, however, prompted our dad to come over to my house to lecture me and Ben on what a huge responsibility kids are, and how there's plenty of time to have kids after Crystal gets married. I'm just so sick of everyone suggesting that I need to put my life on hold for Crystal's wedding when I'm not even in the bridal party. So am I the jerk? Who'd have thought we'd find 2 stories back to back about women with awful sisters and significant others named Ben? But there are a few details in this story that make it stand out, which need some explaining. The biggest is that, despite what the mother said about Crystal making OP happy at her own wedding, she says in a comment that Crystal actually wore an off-white dress to her ceremony. She then laughs about her mother-in-law intentionally spilling a glass of red wine on it. This makes the whole family look awful. You should know better than to wear off-white to a wedding, but intentionally ruining an expensive article of clothing is still a jerk move. It's also hard to imagine both parents telling OP to terminate her pregnancy. The father's logic is especially questionable. The wedding's in 3 months. Raising kids won't be any less of a responsibility in a few months than it is now. It's also nonsense to tell a pregnant woman that she should wear heels to look thinner. I'm pretty sure you can only slim down a baby bump by so much. At best, this story is made up. At worst, this entire family just seems to hate each other. I hope Crystal's fiancé is aware of the petty drama he's marrying himself into. I was called abusive for breaking off my engagement. My potential ex-fiancé and I have had a huge fight recently over something that she did. I'm not going to lie, I didn't handle the situation the best myself, so I will say the blame is on both ends. I don't get along with my family at all. I come from a family of doctors and nurses. My family drama started when I entered college and studied engineering. To my parents, that was apparently me saying that their professions weren't good enough for me. I said their arguments made no sense. I don't give a flip what job you have. I like what I like, so that's what I'll pursue. Obviously, there's more to the story, but all you need to understand is that there's bad blood there. We were set to marry in December, but she kept pressuring me to make amends with my family. I kept pushing back. I'm not the one that messed up. If anything, they need to reach out to me and apologize. She says I need to be the bigger person. I say no. So last week, she invites me to tag along with her to brunch with her friends. Imagine my surprise when I find my parents there waiting for us. I refuse to enter the place. This upset her, and she started yelling at me for being a child. My parents came out and started yelling at me for being a disobedient brat who acts like he's too good for the family. I remained silent and just turn and walk away. I whipped out my phone and texted my fiancé that we're done. I said, "Don't contact me again. I've been adamant about one thing since you've met me. I don't get along with my family, and I don't want them around me." I was getting ambushed with hundreds of calls from her family, friends, and other acquaintances. I ignored all of them. I felt justified in my stance until her best friend came over to my house, and boy did she let me have it. She said that all my fiancé wanted to do was make me whole again, but I'm too childish and stupid to see the bigger picture. Then she called me a jerk and said I hurt my fiancé worse than the man who forced himself on her when she was 11. The friend left, and I started bawling my eyes out. The tears felt like razors as they streamed down my cheeks. Am I really that bad? A part of me feels like the friend was being extreme. But what if there's some truth to it? Is there something I'm not seeing? I thought engineers were pretty detail-oriented people, but there's one huge detail that OP seems to be missing. He says that his parents should be reaching out to apologize and that he shouldn't have to do it first. But when he saw them waiting for him in the restaurant, did it not occur to him that maybe they planned on doing exactly that? The way they yelled at him might not look great, but they only did that after he petulantly refused to even walk inside. And considering how quickly he went nuclear on his fiancée and ended the engagement without even talking to her about what happened, it's hard not to believe there's more to the story of why he and his parents don't talk. Putting all of that aside, his fiancée had no right to say what she did. Comparing him to someone who would harm a child is just plain vile. The comments are desperate to see the fiancé as a villain for some reason, so a lot of them are assuming that she's been saying the same thing. I have doubts about that. Some women have pretty defensive friends. If you hurt a woman, there's a good chance that her best friends will come after you far more aggressively than she ever will. and sometimes with no provocation whatsoever. And that's especially true if OP wants us to believe he's been getting hundreds of calls. This girl's not exactly commanding the Iron Fleet. A number of these callers are likely self-motivated. Then again, maybe the fiancé did say that. It doesn't mean that what OP did was actually worse, it simply means she feels worse. That's pretty subjective, and nearly impossible to argue with, especially since victims of the crime she's talking about sometimes numb themselves for years and do their best to feel as little as possible for fear of being buried in it. But what do you think? Do you think the fiancé played a hand in this? Is OP overreacting to what the fiancé did, or is it worth calling off the engagement? Let us know your opinion down in the comments. Please leave your stories in the comments. I'd love to make a video of them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.